With us, we have the host of Way Too Early, White House bureau chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire, the host of the podcast On Brand with Donny Deutsch, MSNBC contributor and author of the book, How the Right Lost Its Mind, Charlie Sykes, and MSNBC political analyst and publisher of the newsletter, The Ink, available on Substack, Anand Giridharadas. Charlie, I'll start with you. Did I miss anything?
Well, you pull back the lens a little bit. This is one of the craziest endings to a presidential campaign we've ever seen. These are the closing arguments, and what you're seeing is gaslighting and BS coming from the Trump folks. I mean, it's hard to keep up with all of the things that have been happening. You know, his meltdown the other day, his performance at the economic forum in Chicago, and then those answers last night. But I don't think you've missed anything. Kamala Harris is doing something very interesting. She is going places that most presidential candidates don't go. She's reaching out as creating a big tent by campaigning with Republicans. She's going into the lion's den of Fox News, and she's going into aggressive hand-to-hand combat with a guy who clearly did have an audience of one. I mean, Bret Baier had one mission, which was to engage in fan service for Fox News and to get a social media post from Donald Trump telling him that he did a great job. Jonathan Lemire, I think, pointed out. It was Willie Geist who pointed out Trump has been working the refs. And he successfully worked the refs. But I do think that, this is one of those moments you step back and you go, okay, we are now, 3 weeks out from the election. Normally, presidential candidates present their best and most appealing sides, right? They are appealing to the voters who are still in play. What is Donald Trump doing? What side of himself is he showing himself? It really is kind of remarkable, and I think you've seen that showcased over the last 24 hours in these dueling town hall interviews.
So, Donnie, as I said before, I've long had respect for Bret Baier. He does tough interviews with Republicans on his show all the time. We want adversarial interviews. That's how you get information from people, fair questions in there about some changes in her positions on things. But they kind of gave away the game a few times, most notably when they showed that clip trying to defend Donald Trump, totally out of context and using half of the soundbite, saying, no, he didn't really mean it when he said there are enemies from within on the radical left in this country. That was the third or fourth time he said that. Said it first last Sunday, also on Fox News, and specifically did mention Adam Schiff and did mention the Pelosi's, as he called it. So I guess the question for you is, did that interview move the needle in one direction or the other?
I thought she did a great job. I was watching in real time, and I was quite repulsed by Bret Baier. I had always liked him, always thought he was a straight shooter, and the attack mode from the beginning was quite stunning. What dawned on me yesterday as I was watching is, can you imagine Donald Trump doing an interview at MSNBC? Can you imagine what he would be called on? And he would, after the interview, because he was challenged, he'd say the license should be revoked from MSNBC. Like, there's this fairness and unfairness. There's this weakness and strength. And the weakness is Donald Trump. He didn't do 60 Minutes. He won't show up for the debate. He would never do anything on an adversarial network. He's a coward. He's an absolute coward. And the litany of things that he says. I think the thing yesterday that got me more than anything was when he described January 6th as a day of love. Oh, yeah. I kept picturing that. You remember that Coke song from the 60s, I Like to Teach the World? I was picturing that music over that image, a day of love. It is reprehensible the way he behaves, and it is to the point where I'm having trouble talking to people who are voting for Donald Trump. I really, I don't see what they're not getting. How do you see that and go, bang?
And Anand, let's just watch again. Right. He was talking about enemies from within. They played that misleading clip yesterday for Kamala Harris, and she called them out on it. Here's what Donald Trump said beginning on Sunday on Fox News.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
Should be handled very easily by the National Guard or the military. So, Anand, a couple of days ago, you were here. We were talking about Kamala Harris going into these places like Fox News, maybe going on Joe Rogan's podcast and sitting there and talking policy and taking the heat and coming out and it benefiting her. Do you think that benefited her yesterday?
Yeah, I think, it was a rich policy discussion if you dug into it, but I think what most people are looking for is more visceral than that. People are looking for whether you have the mettle to smash the obstacles in their lives that they can't smash on themselves, which they need leaders to smash for them. And I think that kind of thing, when you're up against that, it shows that to people. To pick up on a couple things Mika said I thought were really important. I loved, Mika, that you used the word fascism, the other F word, the F word of this moment, because I think many of us in the media, particularly a lot of the newspapers, have been very, very reluctant to say what is clear, right? A tree is a tree, a river is a river, and fascism is fascism. It is a word with a dictionary definition, and if a tree is a tree, fascism is fascism. And this what is offered by Donald Trump and the Republican Party today is fascism, and we in the media need to say it. And the other thing that Mika brought up, which I just wanted to, expand on for a second, is this notion of interruption, right? It was a tick in that interview, but it was almost interruptionism last night. I was watching this and it was like, this is interruption as an art form, interruption, and it started to feel like interruption as a metaphor for a rising new America, a new generation of leadership, a woman, a person of color in Kamala Harris trying to speak, and this kind of figure of the old guard who was offended at the notion that her voice had a volume, right? That her vocal cords made sound. Invited her on the show and then was very, very angry that he could hear her. And it just felt like a metaphor for a minority in this country that is angry at the notion that a rising pluralist, more pluralist new America is speaking, is around, is here, and a desire to interrupt not just a person, but the future. And I actually don't think the future will be interrupted. And I think a lot of people who watch Fox News even have experienced that in meetings, have experienced that at work, have experienced that all their lives in different forms, and don't like it, whatever their policy views are.